Hello, everybody, and welcome to Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And I'm going to move that closer. Just put that up there. Okay. All right. Let's just see here. We have a little bit of trouble with our broadcast. You know, we're going to end this broadcast and come back because we're having some trouble with all right, well, let's go ahead and just do it. It's not showing up on all the platforms that it's supposed to. So I don't know what's going on, but we are going to just see here. I do not know what is going on. All right. Well, let's I'm not sure. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do it. All right. So you can see and hear me. I know that, but it's supposed to be live on several different platforms. And for some reason, it is not showing up on all the different places it's supposed to be. So I don't know what's going on, but this happened one other time and something is not right. So we are going to see if we can re-add these.
This will just take a moment.
This will take a moment. Remove. Yeah, this is wrong, honey. Let's just see here. Sorry, everybody. I think we may go off and come back on. All right.
It's going to be a good one today.
Yeah.
I mean, it will be.
Let's just see here. What is happening? Yeah, it's not going to happen. Okay, we'll just go ahead and do it. All right, everybody. Welcome to Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I am Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And we're happy to see you here. We apologize for the technical difficulties. I need to talk to my podcast coordinator and see what's going on here. It is great to see everyone. And today we're going to talk about how long you should wait to hear I love you from a man. This is a big question that comes up all the time for the women in our group. And we want to talk about this. Honey, you said I love you very, very quickly in our relationship. Yep, I can.
Well, men tend to say this sooner than women. Men will say this probably on the average, maybe by the third month.
Really?
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
And women can take longer.
Huh.
Women can take much longer, up to 6 months or even more. And I have my own thoughts about why that would be, because men may be so totally infatuated that their only way of expressing it is to say, I love you. Where women may be more cautious about a potential father for their children, provider, protector, all of those things. So the strange thing is, and what surprised me is that in looking at several studies, that men will consistently say, I love you before a woman will.
Wow, that's wild.
And so, some of it possibly maybe the woman is waiting for the man to say, I love you.
Why do you think women wait?
I think they're afraid of scaring a man away, that the feelings may not be reciprocated. And they may want to really observe the man more in life and how he appears in life um, than just the romance of the limerence period, the honeymoon period of dating.
Mm-hmm. So you think women are, well, why do women wait for a man to say it?
Well, again, I think that they may be afraid of the answer,
Uh-huh.
that it may not be reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if the man says it first, then it's free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But it's interesting because it's like a cultural thing too, that you're supposed to wait. I mean, as women, we're told that you're supposed to wait for, just like you're supposed to wait for a man to propose, you're supposed to wait for a man to say, I love you.
I think that may have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's relevant anymore, and that we encourage women to take the female lead.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a concern about saying "I love you" too soon, particularly if we don't actually know the person that well, and that so often happens. And it may be a sign that people are confusing, both the man and the woman are confusing infatuation with love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just go over a few notes I jotted down on infatuation. And it's like projecting, and we've all done it. And it's one of the reasons why in our program, Emotionally Naked Dating, that we encourage the women to be dating or at least in contact with 3 different men. So they're not projecting so strongly on one individual. And that man isn't taking up so much real estate in their love life mind. So, it's when you haven't known the person that long and you're constantly thinking about this person. You haven't had that many deep, real interactions and conversations with each other, yet you already have strong feelings for them. And you have the sense that this person is finally the perfect ideal person for you, the ideal partner. And there's a sense of being obsessed, just thinking about the person, what you can do for the person, but you really don't know the person. You haven't shared time, common experiences, developed trust and safety. And that the physical attraction to the person can sometimes distract a person from really seeing beyond that because they're so attracted to the person. And, again, with infatuation, very often we really don't know the other person. We think we do because we think this is the ideal person we've been waiting for, but we really don't know that person yet. More on a surface level, based on their appearance or their behavior at work or in a group setting. And and one tends to fantasize about this person, again, despite not knowing them on a personal level. And the danger is that you begin to feel disappointed when the person doesn't meet your expectations, which is likely, or consequently you shrug it off as a fluke. Like if one has this idealized sense of a person and they don't meet that expectation, it's disappointing.
Well, you rationalize away all of the bad things,
Exactly.
and you amplify the good things because
Exactly.
you're projecting and you want to only see the good stuff.
Exactly. One is ignoring the yellow and the red flags, the
Mm-hmm.
yellow, the orange, and the red flags.
Yeah.
And we're very concerned about impressing the person rather than just being with the person as we would be with a good friend. We want to be on our seeing them in our best positive light, and we're thrilled about having that person having chosen us, even though the words "I love you" hadn't been spoken, and we're forming the feelings for this person so quickly. It's almost as if, you know, it's that love at first sight,
Hmm.
where and which is all projection.
Right.
It's all projection, and things are moving so quickly, and one or both people are really rushing to hit these relationship milestones as fast as possible. And infatuation doesn't always turn to love. And sometimes it stays that way until the relationship comes to a close, either because the object of infatuation fails to live up to the fantasy we've created, or because they don't reciprocate the feelings. And infatuation, of course, can turn into love, but we have to really throw some yellow flags in there.
So I'm going to pause you for a
Yeah.
second because I don't think infatuation does turn into love. I think that's another myth.
Well, that's true.
I don't buy into that for a second.
I think I was being optimistic. Because you're absolutely right. Because with infatuation, we miss so many important steps along the way.
Well, and what happens also is when you're infatuated and then things start to fall apart, it's like everything comes crashing down
In a big way.
and, you feel betrayed. It feels like a bait and switch. When reality sets in, which it's going to do, it's you're falling from a pretty high place and it's nearly impossible to get back to any semblance of what, where you started off. And also because it was based on fantasy.
Yeah. So we encourage the women in the group to go slow.
And what group is that, honey?
The Emotionally Naked Dating Group, which is a 12-week course.
Right.
To be followed by SSW, Sisterhood of Self-Actualized Women, which is a 6-month course, a graduate course of emotionally naked dating. Then we have the 1-year mastermind course, which is extraordinary. And people have almost 24/7 access to you and I.
So I'm just going to throw out there that I am such a realist. And when I took a step back from my own relationship history, which was appalling, I stopped and I thought, whoa, one of my most humbling moments in my life at that time was when I recognized that I knew almost nothing about this part of life, that everything I had been taught were myths and fantasies and Disney fairy tales. And I realized that this, like anything else we do in life, is something we have to do with thought and purpose and tension, and little to no projection. And so I realized, based on my own journey after I left my first husband and realized that I had invested literally 13 of the most important years of my life with a man who even if I didn't have the right words to describe what was going on with him, I knew something was seriously wrong. And I kept staying in that relationship because of a lot of those fantasies, right? The infatuation and the fantasies that initially connected us. But I stayed because I kept hoping that we could get back, to solid ground, which we weren't equipped to do. And when I left, I realized that I had a lot of work to do. And one of the key things I knew was that I had to let go of these fantasies and projections. So when you and I met, I literally had this image of a chalkboard, which I talk about, and I would write on my imaginary chalkboard all these wonderful things about the man that I had gone on a date with. He's charming. He treated me beautifully. He took me to a wonderful dinner. We had a lovely conversation. And I would literally take out my imaginary eraser and I would go like that and I would wipe the board clean and I would say, and you don't know him yet. You do not know this person yet. You're just getting to know him. And for that reason, it took me quite a while to, not that I didn't think you were amazing. I could see what an incredible man you were, but I also knew that no matter how fabulous you were, I didn't know if our lives would, even though I didn't know how or if our lives could fit together. And so these projections, yeah, they get in the way. And as you wrote here, you need to have what in order to really know?
Well, you have to be with someone long enough and in enough situations, uh, and non-romantic situations, real life situations, so that you feel a sense of trust and you feel a sense of safety. And there have been shared experiences, and you've seen each other go through different emotions and handle difficult situations. And and one of the things that we urge is for people to go slow, because it's so easy to jump in when it seems like this is ideal. Um, I think what matters most is that you know in your heart that the feelings you have in your heart are beyond infatuation, which really means getting over the projection, really knowing not only that you can see that person, but that person sees you, and you're not always trying to put on your best act, and they're not putting on their best act, but you're comfortable with each other and sharing all of you. Some people use the term "I love you" as kind of a emotional manipulation, like love bombing. So particularly a guy will come in and early on and just say, you're exactly who I've been looking for. I love you, and it's a quick way to get someone into bed, and have those positive emotions reflected back to the guy. But as soon as the woman starts
To attach.
and reciprocating and moving forward, the avoidant, the love bomber, will flee. And it's crazy. It's a recipe for this anxious avoidant cycle back and forth, and many of us have experienced that. A safer way to dip a toe into the water is saying, I'm falling in love with you. It's a little less directed, and there are things about a person we could fall in love with without falling in love with the entire person. I think it's also important how the three words are said. If someone looks in someone's eyes and say, I see you, all of you, and I could see perhaps even more of you than you could see in yourself. And I could see you so clearly that I could see your soul's journey. And I want to be a part of that journey. I want to foster that journey. That's love. My last wife, she never got beyond saying I love you by saying, I love ya, I love ya. And it really meant nothing.
Wow.
In fact, it was a kind of a electrical zing, because I know it wasn't an expression of love. It was just, like, see you tomorrow. And it was never that looking in the eyes and just melting and saying, I love you, and have that magical moment where two people just connect with those three words. Long distance love can be both challenging and positive. Positive in that, starting with COVID and people started dating over Zoom, they started having, we were getting reports very happy reports from women in the group that they were having these hour and a half, sometimes 3 hour conversations where they really got to know someone, without the uh, physicality getting in the way. And so a lot of happily ever after relationships developed out of COVID, developed out of those Zoom relationships, those FaceTime, um, or where they could only walk in the park, outside.
Not even hold hands.
Right, with masks on.
Right.
But it created a knowledge of each other, an intimacy, and a foundation to build on. So they became friends before they became lovers. And saying I love you too soon can turn a relationship on its head. People become lovers before they actually learn to become friends, and that friendship may never develop.
And there was also the flip side to that, where some of the women did those 37 questions from the New York Times, that make you fall in love. There's that article, and they actually would do those over the Zoom calls. And what they found out was that ultimately that was just fake, that they had these deep, intense, revealing conversations with men. And it was so hyper focused and so intense, and it was too much too fast. And so those broke apart quickly because the women fell for the guys so fast. But then they realized that they still knew they didn't have enough shared experience.
Right. Oh, I've fallen for that myself. I've been in workshops, personal growth workshops, where you put your foreheads together, for 5 minutes, or you stare into each other's eyes, or you do some bonding, and I feel love. It's always going to be like this. It'll only get better.
That's so funny. Yeah, but it does. You do. And I think it's to people's credit that we want to feel this. We want to have these feelings. And there's the most beautiful feelings we can have that any two people can share with one another and for one another. But it is so, so, so important for people to know that it's something that has to have a foundation underneath it.
Yeah. And sometimes long distance relationships don't develop the foundation. And every time two people get together, it's like a honeymoon. So they never see, or they ignore. Most likely they ignore the red flags. My last wife smoked, and at around 10 at night, I'd hear the wine bottle open. I'd go to bed, and the bottle would be pretty much empty by morning. And, I kind of ignored that because she said she would change, after we got married and all, which of course didn't happen. And so the danger of long distance relationship is really that it's a sequential, consecutive honeymoon, each weekend or however how long you get together. One would ask, is there ever a bad time to say I love you? I think that basically saying it too soon, which can be a matter of need or insecurity of wanting to seal the deal, or just being so hungry for a relationship, as so many people are, that they'll say it too soon, and the other person, may just not be ready. They may be wanting to date other people. They may want to know what it's like to live together first, before even saying those words, and really getting to know that, building a relationship with that person before it's said too soon. And one should not, it's perfectly fine to say during sex, I love you. And it's not uncommon to say it while you're drunk or impaired in some way. But if someone says, I love you during sex, and it's early on in the relationship, that's when those love hormones flow. And how it is in the next morning may be the same or it may be quite different. So if someone says, I love you during sex, you really take it, that's wonderful. But knowing that it's said in a moment where most people will say that. So you may not take it too seriously. And of course, when we're drunk or impaired, much or all of us have said things that have gone beyond reality, and or on ecstasy or
yeah. But it's also really important, if that does happen, not to discount it, but to sit back and just see how is he the next day?
Yeah.
Is he pulling away, distancing himself, or is he leaning in and feeling more intimacy and more closeness? Because sometimes those things can help open up a space for that deeper connection, and a man and anybody may need the liquid courage or the sexual hormones to be able to get over the hump and the pressure of saying that, right? Because we can forget ourselves in those moments and just open up the doors to our heart. But if those doors slam shut the next morning and that man starts to pull away, distance himself and all, then that's something that you really have to look at.
Yeah. I would never say I love you for the first time over a text message.
Or in a Valentine's Day card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that's so personal. And some relationships have really developed over text, which we don't recommend. We recommend texting only to get people on a Zoom call and to get to know them that way. And then to have an occasional text, good morning and all of that. But some people use texting in lieu of intimate conversations. And in this generation that is so connected to their phones and to texting and short messages, it's easy for someone to, they may have just watched a rom-com or something, or just, like had a couple glasses of beer or wine and just text, I love you. The words are so important that they really need to be, where two people are in that, what we call bell jar, where nothing else exists. And so those words really have importance, really have weight to them. Some people will wait for their partner to say those words, and it could be very frustrating because those words are very important to them. And a lot of men may be reluctant to say those words, even if they have strong feelings for their women, the woman that they're with, because they may have been hurt in the past. They may have had a terrible relationship. They may be paying alimony. They may have had a terrible divorce. And so we want to really take in all of who that man is and what they've gone through. We need to walk in their shoes, because we're saying, why isn't he saying, I love you? What's wrong? And he would just have been so hurt. We also want to take a look at if men have said, I love you too soon in a relationship, and the relationships have just fallen apart. I was in very romantic relationship. Beautiful woman. It was incredibly romantic, sensual, deep conversations. And I said, I love you. And that was the end of the relationship, because she was avoidant. And things were fine just the way they were. She didn't want it to go to the next level. So would I be reluctant to say I love you in the next relationship? I may have possibly have been reluctant.
But you weren't with me.
No, I think what happened, if I remember, just because our relationship was so seamless that there wasn't a moment that I proposed or a moment that I think that we were on a walk outside your apartment in Los Feliz. I think we were walking your Sharpei Bobo, and I just said, I love you. And that was it. You know, we were alone. We there were no distractions. We weren't drunk. we weren't having sex. And I think I said I love you well before we were physically intimate. And I think because I felt love and expressed it, we talked about waiting for physical intimacy till we really got to know each other even more. And it meant that so much more.
Yeah. But can we go back to waiting for your partner? I want to talk about this because this is really the heart and soul of this conversation is, that women are waiting. And most of the time, they want to hear it from a man first. We do. I think partly because there's so much mythology around men are supposed to they're the hunters and the pursuers and whatever. And so we're waiting for that moment where we feel like, they've chosen us, that we're chosen, and we hear the words, I love you. I think that there's something, regardless of whether a man has been hurt or whatever, I think those things need to be taken into account. But I think there's a time for waiting, and then there's a time for just having an honest conversation and saying, I've been waiting to hear these words from you. I love the way our relationship is going. And I would really like to know what you think about me, about us, about our relationship. And even if I could be so bold as to say, I'd like to know how you feel about me, if you love me, if you feel love for me. And I think that there's a point where you must have that conversation, especially if you're sexually intimate. And it's been, several months where you have been intimate on a regular basis with somebody, and that man seems, is showing up mentally, emotionally, and physically, but he hasn't said those words, and you're developing intimate feelings. If you don't say something, then you become complicit in that. We've seen this in some of our clients where we say, look, you've been dating this man for 7 months, you're intimate, you're sexual, you're sharing so much, and yet you're still waiting to hear I love you.
Right. And we've urged the women to have these, what we call the difficult conversation. And many have been reluctant because they're afraid of the answer, because they already know the answer. And the answer may be, I like things the way they are. They may or may not say, I love you. Chances are they've never said, the man has never said, I love you. They want to keep things at a certain distance. And the woman is just waiting. And then they convince themselves that it's not that important.
Or that he's showing it in all these other ways. And, he's doing this, he's going on vacations and all. But in truth, he may not be planning a future for the two of them, or he may be making idle promises that, oh, yes, I'll introduce you to my kids or whatever. And then somehow that just doesn't seem to happen. So it's like the woman is making excuses and telling herself what she believing what she thinks she needs to believe and making excuses for why he isn't saying those words. But those are important words. You have to be a man has to be willing to say them to you. It's, and it shouldn't be, oh my gosh, if you're sexually intimate and it's been, it's 2-3 months and you haven't heard those words from a man, if it were me, I would be deeply concerned about that. Even if I thought he was great and everything, I would think that there was some emotional block. And I would cut that personally. I would end that relationship. But I probably wouldn't have even been sexually intimate with him before I heard those words.
Right.
I wouldn't. I think that it's, as we're unwrapping this, if I didn't hear those words first, why would I even want to have sexual intercourse with a man who I didn't feel loved me?
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very, very true. And a lot of men will not say those words because they have one foot out the door.
Mm-hmm.
There was one incident in one of our groups where a woman was certain the guy was so into him and
into her.
And she drove by his house and there was a tall blonde, with a sports car in the driveway, and they were talking and looked like they were having an intimate conversation. And that was the person that man wound up with. It was a former girlfriend.
Well, and not only that, she allowed him to string her along for months after that.
Mm-hmm.
Months while she would go to lunch with him and he was trying to figure out what he wanted and all of this. And that, if it had been me, the day I saw that woman's car in his driveway and learned that, yes, this was a former girlfriend and he was entertaining getting back with her, absolute end. You figure out what you want, but I'm not sitting and putting my life on hold, my love life on hold for anybody. And this is what you all need to understand. You never want to be in a holding pattern for anybody while he figures out what he wants. If it's not you and that man isn't fully in heart and soul, then move on. It doesn't matter how wonderful he is, how many great vacations you've been on and things you've done together. You are going to get your heart crumpled if you do that. And it's you're putting yourself in that position. And the best thing to do is just walk away and choose yourself. If you don't put yourself first, nobody else will. So, and this is not about being avoidant or having one foot in and one foot out. This is knowing what you're worth. And we do, by the way, encourage the women in our program to date several men in the very beginning so they don't jump in too quickly with any one man. But once you start to make a decision to go down that road with somebody, you are looking for a man who is as emotionally mature and open and available and ready for love as you are. And those men are out there. But if you keep wasting your own time and your own life with the ones who aren't showing up, waiting for them to get it together and figure it out, you're going to throw away precious years of your life
that you'll never get back.
And that you could and should be spending with the guardian of your soul. When I met Benjamin, it was so clear to me that he was unlike any other man I'd ever been with. Anybody. He was committed. He was there with me. There was no anxiety on my part because I always knew where I stood with him. he followed through. If he made a commitment or he said, I would love to see you on Friday night, he was there Friday night. He had a date planned
On time.
on time, early after that first date, but early. He was present. He followed through. He made me feel like I mattered in a way that no other man had ever made me feel. And I went on almost 100 first dates to find a man like him. But it was worth it because I knew after when I set foot on the path this time, I knew that there had to be a man who would be as wild about me as I was about him, but who was also grounded and present, and I don't even, it was so seamless that I don't even remember when you said, I love you. I don't even remember it because it was just a part of an ongoing conversation that happened on our, that started on our very first date and
Yeah.
never ended.
Yeah. And I'm only guessing that that's when I said it. I think it was, but it was just so natural. And it wasn't a theatrical,
Yeah.
like, some people would hire skywriters or go to a stadium and have it lit up on the stadium board. Um, that's theatrical. That's two steps removed. Just looking in someone's eyes, having your arm around them, and just saying, I love you, and mean it from their heart. Mean it from their heart.
Yeah. And I remember, I remember hearing from so many of my clients about these elaborate proposals that they would get from the guys, where the man would have to plan that they would be in Paris in front of the Eiffel Tower, and there would be a table with candles and music and all of this ridiculous stuff so that she could go and post it on Instagram or couldn't wait to tell her girlfriends about the extraordinary proposal she received. And, I know you tell me about the night you got down on your knee, and I believe you. I don't even remember. What I remember is when we were at Vermont and and I remember
A restaurant.
Yeah, it was a restaurant. And I remember before that, you had told me to go look for a ring. And there was a break. I was getting my master's degree and I walked down to a little jewelry store called the
23rd Street.
23rd Street Jeweler. They're now closed because of the pandemic. But I went down there. It had been a very well-known Santa Monica jewelry store for engagement rings. That's primarily what they sold. And I found a beautiful little, Art Deco design. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. We had your mother's diamond. And so I thought this would be lovely. You went down like if that was Sunday that I told you I saw a beautiful ring, you went down Monday morning and put down a deposit on your day off. And I remember when we were at Vermont, at the restaurant, and I didn't know you had taken me to dinner. I had no idea that you had picked up the ring or whatever. And I remember when you pulled it out of the bag, and it was so beautiful, and it couldn't have been more romantic, even though I had originally seen the ring and said that was what I wanted. It was no less of a surprise, and it was no less beautiful, when I saw it, the diamond shining in the light, and you put it on my finger, and I just looked down and I realized that, we were going to be together for the rest of our lives. It was magical. But those moments were not moments that we efforted for, right? Like they came so naturally and they were so genuine and real that, in the simplest of all moments, in these just our moments were so simple. We never felt we had to make this big fanfare around any of it. Our wedding was 10 people in our
Right.
living room,
Right.
10 people in Bobo, my dog. That was it, and it was the happiest and most beautiful day of my life. And I didn't want anything more than that. Yeah. So I think, just to sum all of this up, I think to sum it up, it's really, you have to hear those words. And I do understand women waiting for a man to say it because we want relationship. We know we do. There's no question in our minds. For most women, this is not a question. It's something that we deeply, deeply, deeply desire. Now, some women have been so hurt that they've given up hope that it'll ever happen for them. But it's our deepest desire to be partners, to have a partner. With men, it's a different kind of thing.
Well, men want partnership. I think men see it in it as a different picture. Like a woman may see partnership as intimacy and family, and men may see it as, I've got the job, and I've got the credit score, I've got the house, or whatever it is, and what I don't have is a wife, and so it's not that it's not as deeply important to the man, but I think a man may see it a little differently, perhaps.
Can I say
Please,
something? I
please.
think men see it in many, many ways as a loss of freedom.
Mm.
And so for a man to make that choice to be with a woman, which I know men also are, there's two things. He's giving up his freedom, but he also wants love. He needs the emotional connection. He needs the stability of having a partner, but it comes at a price. For women, we're not giving up our freedom. Historically for women, we did in a lot of ways, because we were housewives and mothers, but it also gave us security. It gave us the ability to feel protected, to feel chosen. So we gained, I think, a lot.
And what you gave to me was showing that you could make my life bigger. I can't think of any compromise, and I can't think of anything you've done to make my life smaller. And so seeing that, and this comes in the courting process, it's not after the I do process, but really showing that someone could make another person's life bigger. That can seal the deal.
Well, and I showed you that by being open to hearing your stories, allowing you to talk about your history, your life experience, your experiences with other women. I was never threatened by your work. You were a hands-on therapist. You treated many beautiful women who came in and essentially, like the unbearable lightness of being, took off their clothes and got on your treatment table. And I never doubted you for a second or questioned your integrity or got self-conscious, about your love for me, or questioned your devotion, or felt threatened by women, any other women, your former partners or women who were your patients. So I showed you in every way I could, and I did that intentionally because I've seen so many women use their sexuality and their drama and their insecurity to manipulate and control men. And I wanted to be the opposite of those things. All right, honey.
Great.
So I love you.
I love you.
I know you do.
And when we say it during the day and throughout the day, it's never a throwaway. It's never like, I love you. It's, we stop, we pause, and we make sure that it's coming from our heart and it's received into the other person's heart.
On that note, thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And this has been Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. We look forward to seeing you again. Please tell everyone you know, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, your cousins, your nephews, your nieces, everyone you know, your girlfriends and guy friends, about this podcast so we can grow our audience, spread the word. We're saying a lot of things in a different way than most other love coaches are. And we really feel that there are not enough truly great role models who are doing this work in a way that is not gamey, that's not manipulative, that isn't about trying to get the guy or get to I do. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're trying to open your heart to a guardian of your soul. This is what we teach in our 12-week Emotionally Naked Dating course. So if you want to learn more, please go to lisashield.com and click the button all over the page. You will be taken to my free presentation, and that's where you will learn more about the kind of work we do. If you're interested in jumping on a call, stay to the end of that presentation because that's where you can book what's called a breakthrough call with a member of our team, and she will explain to you how our program can help you find true love in just 12 weeks. Please rate and like this podcast and also send us your recommendations for future topics. We take those seriously, and you can send those to podcast@lisashield.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.